pays $2,800 per month in rent, and every month, when that transfer leaves his account, he thinks about his landlord, collecting $2,800 from Jake and from the 3 other tenants in the building, $11,200 a month, $134,000 a year, walking in, while his landlord does what? Sits somewhere collecting checks. That picture of the landlord as a passive income collector, living effortlessly on Jake's rent money, is so incomplete that it might as well be a lie. Because what actually happens between Jake's rent payment leaving his account and anything resembling profit reaching his landlord is one of the most complicated, most expensive, and most consistently misunderstood financial journeys in American real estate. And today I'm going to show Jake and every tenant who has been angry about their rent exactly where that money actually goes. The acquisition math that changes everything. Here's where the housing business economics start, and where most people who have never owned a rental property make their first and most significant error. The landlord who owns the building Jake lives in did not simply decide to start collecting rent one day. They spent between $115,000 and $200,000 in cash before receiving a single dollar of rent. A 4-unit building in Jake's market, priced at approximately $800,000, required a down payment of 20%, $160,000, plus closing costs of approximately $16,000, plus initial repairs and improvements to make the units rentable, approximately $25,000, $201,000 in cash, deployed before a single tenant signed a lease. And that $200,000 came from somewhere. It came from savings, or from equity in another property, or from years of accumulating capital while Jake's landlord also paid rent or a mortgage somewhere else. The financing reality in 2026. Here's where the housing business economics become genuinely painful for anyone who acquired property in the last 3 years. Investment property mortgage rates in 2026 are running between 7.5% and 8.5%. On an $800,000 building with 20% down, the mortgage on $640,000 at 8%. Costs $4,694 per month, and the 4 units in Jake's building, renting at an average of $2,800 each, generate $11,200 in monthly revenue before any other cost is paid. The gross margin before expenses, $6,506 per month. Sounds workable, until the expense stack arrives, the expense stack that consumes everything. Here's what happens to that $6,500 apparent margin. Property taxes on an $800,000 building in most American markets run between $8,000 and $24,000 annually, $1,200 per month. Property insurance for a 4-unit residential building, approximately $300 per month. Maintenance and repairs, the industry standard estimate is 1% of property value annually, $8,000 per year, approximately $667 per month. Property management, if Jake's landlord is not self-managing, which most landlords with jobs eventually hire out, costs 8 to 12% of gross rent, approximately $1,000 per month. Capital expenditure reserve, the money set aside for the roof that will need replacing in 7 years, the HVAC systems, the water heaters, the appliances, approximately $500 per month in reserve. Total monthly expenses beyond the mortgage, approximately $3,467, which means a $6,500 apparent margin is actually a margin of approximately $3,000 per month on a $200,000 cash investment, which is a 1.8% monthly return, or approximately 18% annual cash on cash return, which actually sounds quite good until the vacancy arrives. The vacancy trap. Here's the event that makes housing economics genuinely painful for landlords, and that most tenants never think about when calculating their landlord's profit. Vacancy. When a tenant in one of Jake's landlord's 4 units leaves, everything changes immediately. The mortgage payment does not pause. The property taxes do not pause. The insurance does not pause. And the unit sits empty, costing between $2,500 and $3,000 per month in lost revenue, while the landlord advertises, screens applicants, shows the property, and waits for a qualified tenant. Average vacancy between tenants in most markets runs between 3 and 6 weeks, which means every tenant transition costs the landlord between $1,700 and $4,500 in lost revenue, before the marketing costs, before the deep cleaning, before the repairs that every tenant exit requires. And if the tenant leaves owing back rent, or leaves the property damaged beyond normal wear and tear, the financial impact can run to $10,000 to $20,000 between unpaid rent, legal fees, repairs, and the time required to resolve the situation. The eviction economics. Here is a scenario that most landlords never fully price into their business model, and that can turn a profitable property into a financial emergency in 3 months. When a tenant stops paying rent, the landlord faces a legal process that takes between 60 and 180 days depending on the state, during which they cannot remove the tenant, cannot rent the unit to someone else, and cannot recover the lost revenue, while continuing to pay the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance on a unit that is generating zero income. The average eviction in America costs the landlord between $3,000 and $7,000 in legal fees, between 2 and 6 months of lost rent, between $2,000 and $15,000 in repairs after the tenant vacates, and an average of 4 to 8 weeks of additional vacancy before a new tenant can move in. Total cost of a single bad tenant. In a worst case scenario, $15,000 to $30,000 on a property generating approximately $3,000 of monthly profit at full occupancy. 10 months of total profit, eliminated by one problematic tenancy, the appreciation reality. Here is where the housing business economics finally make sense as a long-term wealth building strategy, even when the monthly cash flow is thin or even negative, because the real return in residential real estate is almost never primarily the monthly cash flow. It is the appreciation of the asset over time. Jake's landlord bought the building for $800,000. 5 years ago, in a market that has appreciated approximately 5% per year, the building is now worth approximately $1,020,000, an increase in value of $220,000 on an initial cash investment of approximately $200,000, a 110% return on the original investment from appreciation alone before a single dollar of cash flow is counted. Here's what this means for the actual economics of the housing business. The landlord, who appears to be collecting passive income from Jake's rent, is running an operation that typically generates thin monthly margins, requires active management or expensive professional management, carries significant risk from vacancy and tenant problems, demands ongoing capital for repairs and improvements, and has worked on the assumption that the underlying asset, the building itself, will increase in value consistently over time. And that appreciation, not the monthly cash flow, is the primary economic justification for the entire enterprise. Here's the honest truth about the economics of owning a housing business in 2026. It is not simple, it is not passive, and it is not the money printing machine that Jake imagines when his rent transfer leaves his account, but it is, over long periods of time, in the right markets, one of the most reliable wealth building mechanisms in the history of American investment, because the combination of rent income, appreciation, mortgage paid down by tenants, and tax advantages creates a return structure that has outperformed most alternative investments over most 20-year periods. Jake's landlord is not sitting on a beach counting rent checks. Jake's landlord is managing a building, dealing with maintenance requests, covering vacancies, worrying about mortgage payments during bad months, and watching the value of the asset climb slowly toward a number that justifies every complication of the journey. You have been decoded. If this video changed how you think about the housing market, about your rent, or about real estate as a wealth building strategy, subscribe to Money Decoder 3004. Every single week, we decode the financial systems that shape every American's economic life, simply, honestly, and clearly. Drop a comment below. Do you think landlords are getting rich from your rent? Or does knowing the full economics change that opinion? Tell me honestly. I read every single comment, and I will see you in the next decode.